Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss the exam structure of the Telc B1 German exam. And then I will also tell you some tips and tricks along the way. And most importantly, you will realize at the end of this video that passing the Telc B1 exam is actually not as hard as you might think. It's actually quite easy. So let's dive in. So the exam overview first. The first thing you need to understand is the whole exam is actually divided into two parts or two modules. So one is the written exam and the other is the speaking or oral exam. The written exam is called Schreibliche Prüfung, and then the oral is like Mundliche Prüfung or speaking exam. So one thing you could do is you don't actually need to give both of the exam at once, both of these modules. You can give them separately, but generally it's cheaper to attempt both of them as once, right? That being said, you have to pass both of these modules, written and oral, independently. And that also means that, let's say by any chance, if you fail the speaking exam, you can just retake the speaking exam and then you don't need to give the written exam again. So this is really good. In the written exam, there are four parts basically. One is the reading part, the other is the grammar part, the third is the listening part, and the fourth is the writing part. And all of these are kind of bunched together in one module called the written exam module, and you have to pass all of them together, which is really good. Because let's say if you are bad at listening then and very good at reading and grammar, then you can score badly in the listening exam but still end up passing the written exam. And that's the benefit of taking Telc B1 German exam over Goethe, because in Goethe you have to pass actually each modules independently, and in Telc you have this benefit that you can just pass the written exam as a whole, and then even if you're weak in one of those parts like grammar specifically, then you can do good in other parts and then pass the exam still and get the certificate. So yeah, that was the high level, but now let's dive a bit deep in. So let's talk about specifically about the written exam. So the written exam will have again four parts: reading, grammar, listening, and the letter writing part. And in total, the whole module is about 225 marks or 225 points, right? And you only need to score actually 135 points out of 225, which is a score of 60% to pass this exam. So the bar is really, really low. So you don't need to, you're allowed to make a few mistakes and you will still be able to pass the exam. So that's another important aspect, right? Then the final aspect is in the oral exam, actually, it's barely 20 minutes, right? And then the total points are actually, basically you need to have at least 45 points to actually pass the speaking exam. And the total is actually 75 points. So the oral exam will have 3 sections, right? You have to speak for maximum 20 sentences for 15 minutes. The total exam will last, and you need to score 45. And it's also very, very easy. And in later videos, I will tell you how to prepare for the speaking exam. But right now, we're going to focus on the written exam part. So looking at the written exam module, the first is the section is the reading exam, right? Reading comprehension. And roughly, you should spend around 60 minutes or 1 hour doing this reading section. And it would contain 3 subsections. So one would be global understanding, global verstehen, right? In which you will be given the title and you have to, a bunch of titles and paragraphs and you have to match that. Then there's a section 2 of reading comprehension or detailed verstehen, and the third part is selective verstehen. So the first part of the reading, first section of the reading submodule is actually 25 points with 5 questions, and same goes for the second and third. So this whole thing is worth roughly around 75 points. Okay, so let's dig deep in basically in this reading part, right? So reading, grammar, listening, and then writing. So there are 4 elements to the writing exam, right? So let's dive one by one in each one of them. So reading as a section as a whole again contains 3 subsections. Section 1 is matching the titles, global verstehen. You should, as a section as a whole, you should spend no more than 60 minutes on this. And for this section 1 specifically, I would say you should spend 20 minutes, right? And here what you will do is you will be given 5 paragraphs, right? And then you will be given 10 titles, right? and then you have to match the title to the correct paragraph. So because there are 5 paragraphs or 5 questions, each question is worth 5 points. And then like, because there are 5 questions, this section is about 25 points. Okay. So like, so this is kind of like a sample I have given. So I have added 3, but there will be 5 paragraphs like this. And then you will have to match the correct title for this. Yeah. Generally what I have noticed is like for each paragraph, right? So there are 5 paragraphs and 10 titles, right? So that means 5 titles are like just there to confuse you, right? So you need to pick the correct 5 and then match it to the correct paragraph. So one thing that generally I have noticed is like you can use something like keyword matching to actually eliminate the obviously wrong choices for this paragraph, right? And then you will end up with only 2 plausible looking titles for this paragraph. And that way, like, you can increase your chances of like choosing the correct answer. So let's kind of do an example of this. So for example, in this first paragraph, I need to find the correct title, right? So one thing I can already see is talking something about computer fan, right? It's talking about Freizeit Forschung Institute in Hamburg, right? And graphic program Buchhaltung. So it is like something about computer related, right? So if I just quickly skim through the title, right? Like first title is about family Ryzen. It doesn't sound good. The second one is about like sleeping, schlaf problem, book tip, right? So this is also doesn't look. The third one is actually related to computers, right? So this could be quite plausible. So we will keep an eye on this. This one is about Bahn, so we don't care. This is about market. This is about family and traveling again. This is about vacation again. Urlaub, not interested. And then finally, Umfrage computer. This is also related. So we see, as I said, like you see, in this 10 titles, there are 2 plausible titles that could belong to this first paragraph. And we were able to figure that out very quickly just by matching the keywords, right? Computer, and we were able to quickly match it. So now that we have these 2 titles, how do we know which one is the correct one, right? So one way we can do is like, we can look at other aspects of it. So one thing that I know is like this one is talking about hobby and women, Frauen, right? And then this one is talking about like Umfrage, which means a survey, and then Hausten is a question, who, where means who, and then Haufigsten means like frequently, right? So if I look at the paragraph, right, I think some Hamburg Institute is doing something, right? There's a university, and he's saying like, who is a typical computer fan? Typisch computer fan. Where is who's a typical computer fan? And then they say er ist manlich. He is manly, young, and have higher school education or something like that, right? So it's clearly about a survey that is conducted by like some university. So I will be the correct answer. It doesn't mention anything about Frauen. So using the combination of keyword matching and a bit of understanding, you can really get like very easily get 25 out of 25 marks in this part of the exam. Okay. Then let's move to the second section of the exam that you will see, which is detail verstehen. So this is the second part. Again, this is also 25 points. You will be given 5 questions here. And I would say you should also not spend maximum more than 20 points or more than 20 minutes on it, right? So in this part of the exam, you will be given like this long paragraph, right? And you will be given these 5 multiple choice questions, and then you have to pick the correct answer after reading this paragraph, right? Again, each question is worth 5 points. So this section is also 25 points, right? In total. So one thing you need to also understand is like, in this paragraph, there can be vocabulary that could be way above B1 level, right? But you don't need to panic. Generally, you don't need to fully understand every single word in this long text or reading comprehension to answer the questions. Oftentimes, you can use similar techniques like keyword matching and then like just eliminating the obviously wrong choices to answer this question, right? Again, I will have a separate video to explain how to actually ace this exam. What are the tips and tricks to score high? But this is an exam structure video, so I will not go into that detail. But one thing I will tell you is generally is like, if there are multiple paragraphs, the first question generally you'll find the answer for the first question in the starting paragraph, right? And then the second question in the second paragraph or just after that. So there is some order generally, not always, but generally there is some order. So you will know where to look for instead of just reading everything end to end, right? So yeah, 25 points, you can easily get 20, 25 or 25 or at max 20 very easily you can get in this. So this shouldn't be too hard. So you should try to score high in this. Finally, the third part of the reading exam or the reading subsection of the exam is like selective question, in which you have to match the adverts. Here you will be given 10 situations and 15 ads, and then you will have to match the correct ad to the correct situation. Again, you should not spend more than 20 minutes on this part of the exam as well. So 20, 20, 20, in total in the whole reading section, you should spend no more than 60 minutes, right? Each question is worth 2.5 points, right? So you have 10 questions. That means like this section is also 25 points, right? One thing I would again tell you here is you can use keyword matching to eliminate the obviously wrong choices. For example, the first one is talking about restaurant and food and the weather. So Thai, Vietnamese restaurant, this restaurant, these things make sense, but something like that are obviously wrong, like about Prüfung or Unterricht, about teaching or course, you can eliminate them, right? Another important tip here is like you should really pay attention to small details in the ad, like for example, the dates, the price, the phone number, right? The timings, because oftentimes they will be like two similar looking ads, right? But you would want to sit outside. For example, in the first example, they say Sie gerne draußen sitzen. That means you need to sit outside. You would like to sit outside. So even though there are like multiple restaurant ads here, like this Chinese Vietnamese place, there's there's this Italian place. But if you look at the details, like it says by a Schönem Wetter, Garten Betrieb. So you can like, there's some garden in good weather that you can sit here, right? So that's why this would be the correct answer instead of just like this Thai Vietnamese place, right? So you need to kind of pay attention to these smaller details here because they try to trick you. But if you do pay attention, like you should also be able to easily score just by keyword matching 25 out of 25 points, okay? Then you move, so if you do all of this, you score like in total in the reading exam, the total is 75 points in total if you combine each section, right? And you can easily score 60 out of 75 even if you make a few mistakes, right? So that's already good. So we covered the three sections of the reading, and then you are already at 60 points, right? So then we move on to the grammar part of the written exam, and it has two sections. So the first is like Sprachbaustein, right? Tie lines. This one you will be given like a paragraph with the blanks, right? And corresponding to each blank, you will have three choices and you have to pick the correct one. Now, grammar is a bit hard, I understand, but the only way to do is to practice a lot. And so even if you practice a lot, you should be able to get like, if it's 15 marks, right? So there are like 10 of these questions, right? Each question is worth like 1.5 marks. Even if you kind of do randomly and get a lot of questions wrong, right? You should be able to score 7.5 points out of 15 in this section. Again, it shouldn't be this hard. Similarly, in this part of the second part of the grammar exam, it's a bit more harder than the previous one. Here you are given again 10 blanks, but instead of multiple choice questions, you're given these 15 words, and then you have to just select the 10 from them and then place where they fit correctly. This one is a bit harder now because in this one you had like one blank and then all three choices. Here, any one of them can fit in any blank, right? So there are tricks to this as well, which I will explain in other videos. But here you should also be able to score like 7.5 out of like 15, which is like, even if you get half the things right? You should be able to score that marks. Like all you need to do is practice a little bit. And like I will share how you can get practice exams as well. So yeah. So these are the grammar part of the exam. So we covered like for the written again. So all these three combined, the writing part of the reading exam adds up to 75 points. And then like the grammar part has two elements to it, right? So this is like 30 points again. So 75 plus 30 points, right? Now the other part is a listening exam, which is also in total 75 points, and you get only 30 minutes to do it. So when the time of the listening exam comes, right, what will happen is like they will play the audio, they will tell you to stop doing everything else, and then you just have to focus on the listening exam. And the first section of the listening exam, right, you will be given these like 5 true and false questions, right, and then 5 audios will be played, and note those audios will be played only once and only once, right? And then based on listening the audio, you will have to either mark whether this statement is true or not. So the speaker will be talking about household work, for example, in this right? And you have to determine that if the speaker needs to do household work almost by themselves, or like they have someone to help, right? So you have to pay attention to the audio. Each question here is worth 5 points. So in total, this section is worth 25 points, right? At the start of the exam, you will be given 30 seconds to read all these 5 statements. And then one thing you should do here is like in those 30 seconds, right, you should highlight the keywords here like household, Hausarbeit, and like all of that sort of stuff, so that when you listen to the exam, right, like align, for example, household and align machen, right? So when you're listening to the audio, then you try to pay attention to those keywords, like are they talking about something like doing alone, the household work? And if it's true, you can guess like, if it's a true or false. You can easily get like 20 out of 25 here. So even if you get one of the questions wrong here, it's fine. It's not a big deal. And you can get the rest of the 4 right, and then you'll still be fine. So yeah, that's the first section. Then the second section of the listening exam is an interview, right? Here you will be given 10 questions, right? And audio recording of a fictional interview would be played, where the interviewer will be interviewing a person about their life, their career, their opinions, right? And then you will, based on that interview, you will have to mark these statements true or false, right? Based on what they are talking about or saying in the interview. Each question here is 2.5 points, and because there are 10, so this whole section is also 25 points, right? The good thing in this is like the audio will be played twice. So you will have option to like, verify your answer. So for example, in the first go, you're listening very carefully. You highlight the words, you're listening very carefully. You mark true and false, true and false. And then after that, like, the audio will be played again. So you can verify your answer and then, get the idea, right? And here, because each question is worth 2.5 marks, you can make a couple of mistakes here and it's going to be fine. You won't lose too many marks. And you can easily score also 20 out of 25 here. So it's, even if you make a few mistakes, and it shouldn't be a problem here as well. I will again make a separate video how to kind of prepare and do this well, but like, yeah. So that brings us like to the third and the final section of the listening part, which is like announcement. This is where you can score really, really high, because I think this is the easiest part of the listening exam. And in this third section of the listening exam, you will be given again these 5 true and false statements, right? That you have to mark either true or false, or richtig or false, right? And then 5 audio announcement will be played for each statement, and then they will be played twice. And then each of these audio, right, will be an announcement. So it would be like an announcement at a train station, or at a restaurant, or at a supermarket, or it could be like a phone call explaining like, why the cinema is closed today, or something like that. And it would have details like, money, 39 euros, or timings like the train will leave at platform 3. So again, what you can do is highlight the key things and then listen to the audio carefully, at what station, at which platform the train will leave, or at what time. So you need to develop this understanding that you can like, understand numbers and currency and time and platform and audio. There will be always real life situations. So yeah, but because it's like a real life situation and it will be played twice, I think you can easily get 25 out of 25 marks here. So then this concludes the listening part of the exam, which is like 75 points. And then finally, you get to the written part of the exam, right? In which you need to write a letter. You have 30 minutes, and this section is worth 45 marks. You need to write at least 12 to 15 sentences here, or around 120 to 150 words. The structure of the exam is following. You will be given a letter. So someone will be writing you a letter. Like the question will be framed as if someone is writing you a letter. Maybe a friend is writing to you, hey, like for example, this is the exam, right? So in this example, you can see you will be given this thing where a fictional friend, Mariana, is writing you a letter where she is coming to Berlin to visit you. And then she's asking you a couple of questions basically. Oh, you know, what's the weather? What's the best time to visit you? What's the best time to, what will be the weather like? What kind of clothes should I pack? Right? That sort of stuff. And then you need to respond to that letter, right? So that's one thing. And then like, again, you have 30 minutes to do that. You need to write at least 15 to 12 to 15 sentences, 120 to 150 words. One thing you need to be careful about is like when you're responding to this letter, right? Based on the letter, you need to take care of the formal and informal tone. For example, in this letter that you were given, it's a friend is writing to you and starts with lieber, right? So that means it's an informal tone. So in your response, when you write the letter, you also should use the informal tone instead of the formal. If you do it wrong, you will lose points, okay? The other point in the exam is like they also write these 4 points that you need to address in your response to this letter when you write. So for example, they say like, you know, you need to tell your friend which is the best time of the year to travel, right? And you need to tell, you know, what you will do together, what kind of activities you will do together when Mariana is here in Berlin, right? Or what kind of clothes should she pack, right? So you need to address all of these 4 points in your response to that letter. And one thing you could do is like, you can take 5 minutes actually to just, you know, write notes in English for each of these, and then you can just translate them and then write them here, right? Another way you can kind of hit this like 15 to 150, 12 to 15 sentences is like, you know, for every formal or informal letter, right? No matter what the topic is, the introduction and the ending will be the kind of the same. So you can learn like generic introduction for informal and formal, and then you can just write it and use it no matter what is the exam. So for example, for informal letter, you can always start the informal letter with this vielen Dank für deine Nachricht. Thank you so much for your letter. Es ist immer sehr schön von dir zu hören. It is always very nice to hear from you. I hope you are doing good. Ich hoffe, es geht dir gut. And ich hoffe, diese Nachricht reise. And I hope this letter finds you well, right? So like this is like an informal intro that you can just learn and then use in any letter, and you will have like these 3 to 5 sentences. Similarly for the ending, and you can do the same for informal. And then, you know, using some tips and tricks, right, which again I will go into detail in other videos, you should be able to easily score 25 marks in this written exam. So yeah, so this was like the high level overview of the exam, where there's, you know, the Telc exam is like divided into 2 modules. The first one is the written exam, which contains 4 parts: reading, grammar, listening, and writing. The reading part as a whole is 75 points with 3 subsections, each worth 25 points, okay? Similarly, the grammar has 2 subsections, each worth 15 points, so in total it's 30 points. And then the listening is like 25 each subsection, and then 75 points as a whole. And then the writing is 45 points. So in total, the entire reading module, right? The entire reading module actually is worth 225 points. But you need to only get 135 points to pass this. So it's very easy. It's very easy. You can make mistakes. You are allowed to make mistakes and you'll still pass. Just quickly giving the oral module or the speaking module, there will be 3 subsections: introduction. Then there will be like you introduce yourself and ask questions from your other examiner, right? Then there will be this dialogue where you talk about a topic with like maybe like traveling alone versus in a group to your exam partner, right? And then the final one is like planning an event together basically with a partner, right? So this whole thing is also like 75 points, and you need to score 45. They're very lenient in this scoring the speaking exam, so you should be able to pass it. I will make a separate dedicated video on how to pass the speaking exam, but that's something for later. So before I actually end this video, right, I just really want to tell you, like, you shouldn't be afraid of giving the B1 exam, and I want to like tell you how easy it is. Like I will show you how easy it is to pass the B1 exam, okay? So let's come up with this theoretical, how your theoretical potential score could look like, right? So let's say you're giving the writing exam, right? So let's say in reading exam, right, in section 1, there are 5 questions, right? Each were 25 points. So let's say you make one mistake, right? So you get 4 of them right, you make one mistake, so you get 20 out of 25. And in second section, you also make another mistake. So, you know, you get one question wrong, so you lose 5 points, and you also get 20 out of 25. And in section 3, right, with that, which was the adverts section, you also make a couple of mistakes, and you also score like 20 out of 25 points, right? So even with all of these mistakes, right, you are easily able to score like 60 out of 75 points in the reading exam. So you're already at 60. You realize that, like, and you only need 135 to pass. So you already are almost halfway there just by attempting the reading exam with 4 mistakes. So you made mistakes, but despite that, you're able to get like almost like 60 marks, which is like very, very easy to get, right? So let's say then you move on to the listening exam, and here as well you make a bunch of mistakes, right? So in the first section you get 1 question wrong. In second section you get 2 questions wrong, right? And third section again you get 1 question wrong, right? So you get 20 out of 25, 20 out of 25, 20 out of 25, right? So you get, like, for listening, after making again all of these mistakes in listening, you get 60 out of 75, right? So you got 60 in reading, you got 60 in like listening, and if you combine the two, you're already at 120 points, and you need only 135 points to pass. Like I cannot emphasize this enough, that look how easy it is. Like, even despite making mistakes in these 2 sections, you are still able to get like 120. Now you need 15 more marks to pass, and you have the whole grammar and the written exam there, right, to get those 15. So in the grammar, even if you don't prepare well, right, even if you just like use your intuition of little bit of German, right, you should be able to score like at least, like 7.5 out of 15 in first and 7.5 out of 15 in second. So you get half the questions wrong basically for both of these sections. Even then you will be able to get 15 out of 13 grammar exam. And if you then combine it with the listening and more, you already passed the exam basically. You need 135, and like you got 120 in like 60 in reading and listening, which is 120, and then 15 in the grammar section, which brings you up to 135 points, which is enough to pass the exam. So you can completely leave the writing exam blank and you will still pass. But and despite making all of this mistake, right? But writing exam is also super easy. If you follow the tricks, if you take care of the formal and informal introduction, you just learn the introductions and ending of the letters just by heart, right? You will be easily able to, and just like learn a few sentences, you should be able to score half the points in this as well. Like you can get 25 out of 45 very easily, and they're very lenient in this. So even if you do that, you should be able to score, like, if I add that 25 marks into 135, your score will come to like 160 points, which is way above than what you are required to score, like, which is 135 to pass the exam, right? So you can make even more mistakes. You have like budget to make even more mistakes in reading, listening, grammar, and writing, right? So you see, it's really not that hard. Like, if you're like panicking and if you're worried about it, I will tell you, if you prepare strategically for the exam, you should be able to very easily pass the B1 exam. I prepared for it for 2 months, like for 2 weeks only. I took 2 weeks off from my work, and I just prepared 8 hours every day, and I was able to clear the exam like very pretty good score, right? And I don't consider myself like as a very strong German speaker or anything, right? So because it's a standardized test, right, you can kind of hack it, because every standardized test by definition means that there will be very well-defined structure to it. And anything that has a well-defined structure, right, means that you can prepare for it really well and then pass it. Those of you who are good in academics, you know that in a school, right, when you have an exam, if you want to score high, if you prepare well strategically, you can always get good grades. It's not about like really, I don't want to say it that way, but like, it doesn't matter if you cannot speak German fluently. You're not at B1 level, you're not expected to do that. What you expect, like, if you just need to prepare strategically, and if you do that, you will be able to easily clear the exam, like the written part of the exam. And then I will make a separate video where I will tell you how to clear the speaking part, because actually most people actually fail the written exam. The speaking is actually the easier exam module to pass, right? So that's that. I would encourage you to like, don't panic, don't get afraid, just prepare properly. And I wish all of you really good luck. I hope you get the exam passed in your very first attempt. Thank you so much. And then I will post some other videos later on.